this is Brett Endy's, professional dog trainer, the Dog Savant. So, I get asked often, and I guess I've probably talked about this, but I figured I would make a video about how I got into dog training, how I became a dog trainer, how I ended up in Los Angeles. I'm sure I've told my story, but why not reiterate it? Also, talking to social media people, you have to share your story, your feel-goods, your experiences, something interesting that happened. So that's what I'm going to do. So I was born in New York, Queens, New York City. Grew up that kind of, I guess, lower middle class type of life. Parents were divorced, so I spent a lot of time between my mother and my father's house. My mother moved out to Long Island. My father remained in Queens. That's where he lived his entire life, from birth to the end. If you know what a Queens man, he is a king of Queens, that man was. So anyway, I was always kind of different, I guess. I struggled with, in one way they called me gifted, but in the other way I had a lot of behavioral issues, mainly a lot of frustrations, tantrums, a lot of, autism things where I would point out what the adults were doing and they didn't like being narrated while they were doing probably stupid, irrational, inconsistent things. And I've always been good at studying what others and animals were doing. Studying the sun out of my eyes here. And, it was not really rewarded heavily. I mean, they knew I loved animals. They always kind of saw that animals were gravitating to me. It's like, boy, the dog listens to this kid and he's wild with the adults. It's like, okay, there's something about this kid. So my mother did encourage in ways. We always had dogs. My grandfather as well. He used to want to be a veterinarian. He ended up being a process server. That's a big detour in life. But through me, he wanted me he saw that the animal thing was important to me, and I loved it. I didn't have a lot of friends when I was a kid. So it was dogs. We had hamsters, parrots, lizards, snakes, fish, lots of fish. I could tell fish stories, so many when I was a kid. It was my mother and my father, and then my mother and stepfather were really, into that. And that was cool. That's what nurtured this. But it was a little overdone, which again, that's how you get into some kind of path in life, is you become obsessed, and that was my special interest, dogs, animals. But I guess, I was able to point out what, I was like, do you not see what the dog's doing? You're talking to it in a way that's not how they're seeing it or perceiving it or what they need right now. And even then, that's what my job is basically that, right? But, so, again, it was like you tell a teacher, why did you say this earlier and now you're saying this differently? I didn't do it, because people love the narcissism. I mean, it's so prevalent now, but with that whole, I didn't say that, I said this, and then the gaslighting or stuff, blah, blah, blah. Dogs, this is why dogs have issues. This is why people on the autism spectrum go nuts socially, because we're trying to stay in this literal, consistent realm, and people are just flying all over the place, wherever their egos and feelings and whatever feel-good needs take them. Anyway, not to get off track. So anyway, so yes, and then we, I spent most of the week in Long Island. That's where I went to my grade school through high school, and then I'd spend most of the weekends, some holidays at my dad's in Queens. And again, my dad didn't really have pets. He had some fish, but in my mom's house, it was like a mini zoo. So, but you think well, if you're going to do something with animals, it was basically veterinarian or nothing. Haha, good luck. And I was capable. I got admitted to veterinary school, earlier this year, but back then it wasn't nurtured, so I didn't get the grades. I didn't take the proper courses. It just wasn't encouraged. I just had to wing my way through school. I graduated high school with C's. I just got by. But teachers, I had talked about in videos, Mrs. Waldman, Mr. Tomani, my 3rd and 4th grade teachers really saw something in me. I remember distinctly how Mrs. Waldman put me in the gifted and talented program, and they would force my mother to do these things. And my mother was a single mother. She was struggling, I'm sure. She has her own issues, and it was just challenging for her to be present enough to be a optimum parent. No one's an optimum parent, but it was not, I didn't get nurtured, but some teachers saw that and tried to compensate. Mr. Tomani saw I was very into also I liked robotic things. One time in 3rd grade, I went down to Florida to my aunt and uncle's house to stay with them, and they had this place in Boca Raton area called Robot Land. It was in the mid 80s, and it was robots, the way that we see now, the Tesla robots and stuff that are going to be real. It was almost I guess it was like a toy. I guess you could remote control, and they would do basic functions. You could talk through them. I mean, 80s style, but it was cool, and I really liked it. I was like, I want to build a robot. And Mr. Tomani thought that was cool, so he would go to Radio Shack and get me motors and parts and circuits, and I learned how to do that. I also had a chemistry set. So I did, I guess, in a way, I was sort of going that path, but it was just always animals. It was always like, whatever I'm going to do, it's always come back to the animals. I felt best around them. And yeah, so anyway, fast forward, I got through high school. I was awkward. I had a few friends, and you know, I was a nice kid. I was a good boy. So I was like, I didn't have like, now I have a little bit of heat inside me, but I was just like, you know, I'd get frustrated, sensory overload, but I'd manage it. It just wasn't as challenging for me as it actually is now, to be quite honest, just because I'm too wise to how things are, and it's like, ugh, you know, the mystery of life, the hope, the everyone's good, all that stuff was a little easier to believe in when I was a young man. But anyway, went to college in Colorado at 18, University of Northern Colorado. So I met my best friend John. We were roommates off and on for a few years, and my friend who I lost, that's a whole other thing recently. But yeah, so that was just, you know, go to school. I got C's. Then I transferred out, took a break. That's when I got into the pet business thing. Oh, and I did work for Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street, for like a year. I learned a lot of good sales, not really good what they were doing, but sales techniques. I was just a trainee, so I never technically took people's money. I did get my Series 7, and then when I stepped back and realized, like, oh, we're robbing people when they let you now see how they're making their money. It's like, oh, you're just selling 30-cent stocks for like $4 and you get the difference. Like, that's crazy. So the person who bought the stock is down $3.70 per share, and they, of course, being smart, would target like these whale investors where they would get them to buy, well, they buy 100,000 shares of this $4 stock, but you own it at 30 cents, and they just lost $370,000. You made that spread, that difference. Anyway, scumbags. And I realized, like, okay, I'm done with that. I'm going to the animal thing. But how do you do this? I didn't even have my college degree. I dropped out of college. I'm a good salesman. I know how to like talk to people when I want to get them to, you know, buy a good or service that I'm offering. So I was like, well, maybe sell them a good and service that I'm offering that's good, that's helpful, that's actually has, you know, scruples. And so I started a dog walking pet sitting business. It's like 19 and a half, 20. And I went crazy. I didn't, you know, there was barely the internet. I had a little website because one of my clients was like one of the first people to be able to do that stuff. Because we're talking like mid 90s, right? Like late-ish 90s. And I just made flyers, I had business cards, I just hustled, and I built in the little town of Long Island where I went to high school, Syosset area, shout out Syosset. I had a dog walking business, and that existed, but after a few years, what happened was it was so busy that, like, well, crap, when everyone travels on the Christmas holidays and all that, like, that's when I'm working. So I was like, I mean, I loved it. I loved being around the dogs. I did like the solitude. That I actually enjoyed, not having to talk all day in regard to the, you know, I'd meet the people once, get all the info, get the key, and then they would just contact me if they wanted me to come walk their dog, or I had my regular weekly clients, you know, when the people go to work Monday through Friday. But that was a pretty good gig, but again, it was just the time I had to commit. I had to, you know, that stress of like, oh, there's a blizzard, right? New York, it snows. There's 8 dogs this morning that I got to get up at 5 a.m. and start, you know, going house to house caring for, and I'm the only one who's responsible for these dogs. So that was a lot of pressure for the money not being, it wasn't really that great, although it's a good gig. I'd do it right now if I needed to. So I was like, well, what else can I do with dogs? Dog grooming, that's just not my thing. And I was like, training, but training was so mystical. It was like, I kind of knew how to work dogs. I knew how to teach them commands in a kind of raw, you know, basic way. But I just gotta check my GPS here. All right, I'm okay. So yeah, so I was like, let me look into this, maybe dog training schools. So you go look in the yellow pages, because internet searches, Google searches weren't really a thing. And there was a school, Academy of Canine Education in Fresh Meadows, New York. And I was like 30, 45 minutes from where I lived in Long Island at the time. So I was like, okay, this is Anthony Girone. It's a school for dog trainers, and he's also a professional dog trainer. And you know, you pay the fee, you go, and it was like a certain amount of classroom hours, I think 100 hours. And then you would go with him, or whatever that, or maybe 100 hours of like hands-on, but you would shadow him in his client sessions, and then he'd do these drop-in groups. That's how I got the model for my drop-in groups, and he would have his clients come in. It was also a way to generate business, so he would have people drop in, and that was difficult because people would come in with like reactive dogs, although there weren't that many reactive dogs like there are now, quite honestly. Not as many reactive people. That's the parallel there. And I help out with that, and you know, I teach you mostly dog training, but also business elements, care, breed, a lot of breeding stuff we learn. We watch a lot of Ed Frawley, Monks of New Skeet. back when Ian Dunbar was like a rational human being. You know, things like that. We'd watch all the VHS tapes, then he would do his own. He had converted, he'd be doing it in his living room, but then I went to visit like a year after I graduated, and he converted his basement into a classroom, which was really cool. He's still doing this. I really think Anthony's still just doing his thing. And what's cool about him, he was a subway conductor engineer in New York City Transit, right? So he he would work all day. He was a gruff guy. He was like cigarettes all the time. Sweet man though. I mean, really loved, you know, it was a Kohler method trainer. He came from the old guard. That's how I first learned. Use a choker chain, pop the dog, praise him, a lot of physical praise, not many treats. He started using e-collars. We used to use the old Tritronics with the 3 levels, and you'd have to change the pin configuration on the collar with a dummy collar with the big, any trainers around more than like 20 years remember those. But yeah, I learned all that stuff, and it was really a good foundation. The biggest thing was like, you can do this. Like, if you learn the craft and how to help these people with their dogs, you can make a living doing this. Look at Anthony, and he was doing it part-time because he wanted benefits. He had like a new baby, even though he was probably like in his 40s or 50s when I was doing this with him then. But yeah, but like, you know, like, it's like, I could do this. I'm doing the dog sitting, and this is my only job, so why not? So I started like transitioning where I would practice with my pet sitting clients, because I'm like, well, they're free, they're paying me to walk their dog, so they're getting free training, and like no one's watching. It's like, this is great extra, you know, time I can put into training. So I did a lot of that, and then I started getting clients. I told my story a few weeks ago in a video about the first client I ever had. I'll talk about it separately, but that was, oh my God, I get PTSD whenever I drive past that house. It's in Plainview, Long Island. I'll never forget that. It was a golden retriever puppy, and it was a whole lot different when people were paying me and they were there standing there. Again, all my training with my work with dogs was like, okay, I meet them once to see how to feed and care for them, and then I'm on my own as long as I'm trustworthy and I don't lose their dog and keep their house intact. But now it's like they're standing there looking for results. I've never poured so much flop sweat out of me. I bombed. But nonetheless, it was a good experience. It's a good story now. Well, shit, 30 years later. It was like 1995, 96. So that was, so anyway, dog training. I did it in Long Island. It was Gold Coast Canine Academy. In Long Island, mostly like the North Shore of Long Island. I was still doing pet sitting. I had New York Critter Sitter was my pet sitting company, and you know, then eventually the dog training took more and more of a lead, and I would get like gigs. I would taught at a local high school, like a night class program we did. It was really, I mean, you know, again, you start meeting people, you go to these events, and I just have all these memories. I used to hang out with Martin, the creator, one of the creators of the band Dog. If anyone knows Martin back in Long Island, he had the tire shop, and I would go buy Martin's dog food from him in a silver bag. We're going deep into the dog realm. For any of you that like think that I'm just some, like, you know, haven't done it and walked the walk, please do your homework on what I've done, who I've met, who I've worked with. So anyway, I used to hang out with Martin at his tire shop. Intimidating. He definitely is the reason why I never got into schutzhund or bite work or anything. He knew me. He's like, Brett, your heart's too big, dude. He's like, you're not gonna like it. He's like, you're not gonna like the people. You're not gonna like what they do with the dogs. And granted, things are a lot more humane now. They were fucking hardcore. Some they throw chains on. But he's right about the people. I really am not like, I don't. Those are all like, and I respect law enforcement, military. I grew up in a military family, so I'm not like some liberal-minded. You know, I'm I guess a liberal considering like how they used to be seen, but now I'm, I guess, middle conservative, whatever the hell. But nonetheless, like, these people, I don't love those people. I've had issues with ones. There's a lot of those in the dog training realm, and I just think they've got their own kind of issues they're working through that they're just not even aware of, and whatever. So anyway, so like, yeah, so that was that. Then I moved, let me see, what was the next step. My daughter was born, and I was still in Long Island, so we're talking about 2005, and yeah, 2005. And then shortly after, within 6 months, her mother and I, although we were not together, we both decided New York, it's just a struggle, it's a grind. Let's go to Colorado. Let's go where I used to live. I lived in Colorado, you know, when I was in college. I was like, and it was Colorado before that explosion came, where the houses are expensive, it's overpopulated, it's got crazy policy. It wasn't like that, you know, even 20 years ago. So we moved in. She bought a townhouse right across, like literally a block and a half away. I got a house and lived there for like 5 years in Longmont, Boulder County, because I like Boulder. My best friend John lived in Boulder, so it was convenient for that. And yeah, my daughter to this day and her mother live in Colorado. I, for my career and other reasons, moved on to Los Angeles, and that was like 2014. So yeah, I was in Colorado for like 10 years. And so in 2014, because I had moved out of Longmont to other places, moved to LA. I was living with Eric Roberts, the actor, in his guest house. I'm really fortunate that they were there to help me get started, and when I had some struggles, because I was coming, again, I was 40 years old. I had a lot of financial issues because I focused on raising my daughter more than my career, and I had just had one last Hail Mary to make a career out of it. And I had trained dogs for all these years, but nothing to the effect of what I made happen in LA, because I was hungry. It was my last option. My daughter, I was like, look, I can't support you if I lost my house to foreclosure. I can't have a house for my child if I don't work hard. So all in, why don't you do something else? Dude, I'm autistic. I'd be on disability if there was something else. I wouldn't last an hour in any kind of situation. I work with a rescue, and I barely can interact with these people because it's like a structured, it's that kind of higher, it's just whatever. So whatever. And that's what her mother was harping on. I'm like, listen, let me just do the dog thing. I promise long term it's going to pay off in the end. And it did. And I built my business. I ended up with a show. I almost got a huge show on Nat Geo Wild. They shot a pilot, a 3-camera pilot. It was a week shot. I mean, there was so much money thrown into it. And the thing is, they lie. So they said, no, we're shooting this pilot. This is going to be your trial episode. But it was like also a lot of they were shooting for other things, and they just didn't choose me. But it was cool. It was about autism and being a dog trainer and kind of leaning into it a little more than I really am. They made me over animate myself and say things that maybe I wouldn't normally say. But it was a cool experience, and it also made me realize that, look, I have something that people want, whether it be my training with dogs, my ethic, my personality, how I look, whatever it is, there's something. So I stuck with it, and to this day, I think I do pretty good as a dog trainer in this market. Now, is LA my favorite place to live? No. Is it an amazing place, and I could see what it used to be? Again, 20 years ago, that was Colorado I'm talking about, but even about 20, 30 years ago, and like in the 60s, 70s, I couldn't imagine the more perfect, amazing, magical, opportunity-based place with the most amazing people to live than Los Angeles. You can see, it's like beneath the rubble, you can still see what it once was, right? It really is. If you see how just the beauty of it, and the setup, and the resources, and it's cool. So anyway, so I live out of LA. I live about an hour and 15 minutes north of the city, so I can have a nice house and peace and be in the forest and have land and space for the dogs and all that good stuff. But yeah, so I stick here, and I have since then, because of COVID. I got out of here. There's a problem with places like this. They get decimated by issues like that, and the people sometimes get brainwashed by it, and I can't deal with that. So I toggled in. I lived in Colorado again for a couple years during COVID. I moved back to Alaska. I even lived in Vegas, but I always based myself in LA. I would always, any of these places I lived in, at least once a month, I would come back to LA and service my clients, and then do my other clients via Zoom. And I do that now, whether I'm in LA and in Alaska, I base myself too. And yeah, so you're a California guy. I am not a California guy. I am an outsider in how I think compared to a lot of people. Not quite up where I live. Where I live, they're more like, I call them normal folks, people that think straight. It doesn't mean it's my way. It's like seeing life as it exists, not ideologies or your opinions on it driving how you see it and expect other people to speak, act, and think. That's ridiculous. Anyway, stay with the dog spread. So as we speak, I am on my way to teach my group class. I do a Saturday morning drop-in for all of my clients. It's a great way to practice if you have a reactive dog, have access to just more training, get reminders from me, questions answered from me. And, even after people are done with the private training, they can access these. So I like that part of the week. It's nice to be part of the pack, see people come together. It's a good energy. People working together help their dogs. It's all about helping the dogs. Then I got some clients. I've got a new client, got an existing client, got a second lesson client. But yeah, I stay busy. I really do. How do you get your business? It's a combination of people Google searching, referrals. Sometimes people had a dog I trained and now they have a new dog, or they told their neighbor by referrals. I don't do many ads, but I think I'm going to, because there's been some issues with my website, so I haven't gotten as much traffic. And again, I still sustain. It's just, last month was like 5 calls a day. Now it's like 1 or 2 calls a day. So I'm working on that. But I'm luckily I am good at what I do. I've established a reputation of being consistent and being good at what I do, running a good, honest business. And that's what I go to sleep well at night knowing, because if I went by other people's, like, what I'm supposed to be doing and thinking and saying and feeling, I'm the bad guy, I guess. Yet I'm the one who, whatever I'm seeing in dogs and teaching, is helping them quite well. Simply because people tell me that. Many unrelated people. And I'm not bragging, I just state fact. That's what people have such a hard time with, that I just narrate what is. Like, you run the video camera and then you play it back, you're gonna see what happened, what was said, what was done, what was misinterpreted. Well, here we go, let's do the replay. And someone else seeing it like an objective observer. I just try to play objective observer, and it's the only way you can be when it comes to interacting with dogs. Like, how dogs sense when you're wishing. That's why positive reinforcement stuff doesn't work, because these people, their ideologies are all that they're driven by. They're not seeing how dogs are. It's like, well, these collars are. It's like, do you see how dogs interact with their mouth? I was talking to a new client yesterday who, when I presented the collar, I'm always kind of like, all right, I got to show them they have to use a pinch collar or a star mark collar, or even a slip, and I can tell they had the harness because they're afraid. And when I know I have a good client, when I present, I go, oh yeah, dogs bite each other. I don't think you're here to hurt my dog. That's all it is. It's that simple. And good trainers aren't there to hurt the dog, and they never do. All this rhetoric that you hear when you live in a completely different existence, and again, it's the objective reality existence, not my interpretation of it. Why? Because there's enough unrelated people and social proof and video evidence of what I do showing this. And all the people that beg to differ and have these issues with the collars and have their own ideologies driving them, and they feel they know better when they haven't done a thing, that's the case. They haven't done a thing. They don't have any evidence of what they do. And all I know is the evidence I see is the people I see as clients have been to multiple trainers that did the harness, the positive reinforcement, the treats only, the clicker only, the poor dog, the sympathy versus empathetic, and really getting in there and seeing where the dog needs intervention. How is the dog, like, how discontented and how insecure could this dog be that if I am walking on a leash with them, or someone comes to my house that is completely safe, and they see, and that's what's reality, but they're seeing it as a literally life and death. Dogs do not act extreme because they have a preference for it. It is, I'm gonna die, I have to go to fight or flight or some kind of reaction to what I perceive keep myself alive. Do you not think you have to be intense in return? And intense doesn't mean being aggressive. It means having a very specific plan, having an energy like, I got this, I'm on it, you don't worry about a thing. Not like, oh, you poor, all of that, that's weak energy. You're not even making the right actions or words said or anything when you're coming from that interpretation of a dog's needs from a human. And again, even humans don't fare well with all that over accommodation and coddling. It just makes the person doing it feel good, because usually they're narcissists, because narcissists can't see anything but from their own mind's eye, and they expect everyone to be that way, and they'll ruin you, and as we see lately, commit violence if you do not accommodate. I may have had recently someone they extorted $500 out of me because they threatened to leave a review because I didn't tell them in advance I used training collars, despite the fact that I showed them results when no one else has even come close. And it was, yeah. So, it's not like you can't look me up and see all my training online and hear me talk about this, thousands of hours worth of content. So, but yeah, that's the mindset of narcissists. That's how they're wired. They're just blind to reality. And then when people are like, hey, I'm gonna point out reality for the sake of like actually helping you, they short circuit because it's too real. They're not. It's sad because we have so many people that like, they were teetering like, well, I could be a decent real human, and then like the COVID stuff and the way the worlds work, all the political and the internet, this social media, the news, it just ruined so many of these people. You just see it, you deal with it. So anyway, I'm glad I talked about this because I haven't really broken this down so much. Started off as my life story, and it kind of segued into philosophical discussion. But it's true. This is I mean, I understand this because I see it. For years I've been not so much up against it because my clients are pretty great, but look, again, I had someone who I thought was a great one-time client, thought I helped, was satisfied, and then I guess the rent was due and they try to extort me, and I don't want to deal with it, so I'd rather just, yeah, fine, here you go. If it's that important to you, I know I helped your dog, so that's what I sleep well at night with. It's sad. I feel really bad for a dog that gets that severely aggressive. It was biting at the people who lived in the home, aside from like on walks, and so it's like, if it gets that bad, how much lack of are you giving your dog? Like literally, like, well, I love my dog. That means nothing. The love is a lasting. You give your dog their needs met. You give them a calm, peaceful existence, coexisting in shared situations, social situations, new environments, new interactions with animals, people. You give them security and peace and calm ability to stay organized in a sensory way, and to not feel their fight or flight mechanism has to kick in when most dogs should live their entire life without having to feel that way. And you're creating that, just like when you're a person who lives in a house is entering the room or coming down the stairs, or someone comes to the door for an Amazon delivery. Think about that. But you want to keep holding on to the love and the feel good and the woke, and I know the mindset, it's delusional narcissism that is collectively, it's like, well, I won't reveal it if you don't reveal it. So that's just how it is. It's just, I can't change it. All I can do is do what I can for the dogs and people in front of me that are, well, the dogs are always open, but the people who are willing to see reality on reality's terms. Okay, I am almost at the park here. Thank you for hearing me out. I'm gonna need a banana. I got my banana. And thank you. Don't forget to go on my website, dogtrainingla.com. Also, I have a stan.store. It's stan.store / thedogsavant, I believe. And I have links to it on my social media. But I have a community of no-nonsense, like-minded dog owners, trainers, enthusiasts who want to connect. There's different options, including one-on-one private lessons you can do with me, too. Thank you.